You have three factors at the moment, which are troubling Pakistan. One is political polarization of what we discussed earlier.
Yeah.
The other is a very fragile economy. They have managed to get a program from the IMF. They are meeting the conditions so far, but they are very tough conditions. It's number two. And number three is terrorism by all these TTP, the Baloch groups, and of course you have sectarianism and religious extremism, which can lead to violence from time to time. And all these factors militate against stability within Pakistan.
You're watching The Gist on Strat News Global. I'm Surya Gangadharan. Hello and welcome to another edition of The Gist. Our focus is on Pakistan, and I have with me Sharat Sabharwal, former High Commissioner to Pakistan from 2009 to 2013. So, welcome, glad to have you.
Thank you. Thank you for having me on your show.
So, we had a couple of reports coming out of Pakistan today, basically about 17 people whom the Pakistanis classify as terrorists being killed in Bannu in Waziristan. And we also have reports of sectarian killing in Kurram, which brings to 124 the lives lost in sectarian violence alone, apparently over the past 10 days. Just give us a perspective of these two events, Are they related? Something else? I mean, it seems like there's something else.
Look, there are two factors operating in that area, insofar as violence and terrorism, etc., is concerned. One, as you know, is Tehreek-e-Taliban Pakistan,
Yeah,
which is groups which are created by the Pakistan army but eventually turned against the Pakistani state. They've been operating for a long time now. Now, Pakistan's hope was that they would disappear or would be reined in once the Taliban came to rule Afghanistan. Now, that hope has been belied. The Taliban now rule in Kabul for the last 3 years plus, but terrorism has only grown.
yeah,
The Pakistanis have realized that the Taliban are not really going to reign in this group, and for various reasons. Look, TTP fought alongside the Taliban to ensure their victory. A.
yeah,
B. They have ideological affinities. C. They have linkages, with various elements within the Taliban. So therefore, the Taliban have been telling the Pakistanis to talk to them, talk to TTP, which is what Imran Khan did when he was prime minister. And that approach got discredited because that gave an opportunity to the TTP to regroup. And
yeah,
some of them are allowed to come into Pakistan's tribal areas, which are now part of Khyber Pakhtunkhwa. Earlier they were tribal agencies. Now they are merged with the province. They managed to come back there and settle there. That has worsened the situation. So now the Pakistan government is saying they are not going to talk to them. They have been indulging from time to time a large number of killings and attacks that take place in Pakistan.
Targeting
This
whom?
is sorry, they are
Whom are they targeting?
targeting the army. They're targeting the Pakistani state. Generally, these are the kind of targets they have. Then, of course, you have the Baloch groups on the other side, which have been targeting again the Pakistani forces, the Chinese interests, TTP also elements amongst them. There have been some attacks in Khyber Pakhtunkhwa also
Yeah,
against the Chinese interests and engineers and so on.
yeah,
The problem in Kurram is a different one. It's the Shia Sunni fault line, a traditional fault line which has been there. As you know, Shia Sunni fault line is an old fault line in the
yeah.
Islamic world, and it existed in Pakistan after the creation of the Pakistani state. It got accentuated after the Iranian Revolution when Saudi Arabia and Iran started vying for the loyalty of Muslims all over the world. So they brought in a lot of influence and money, etc., to cultivate the respective constituencies, Sunnis and Shias, and so on. That led to a lot of violence in Pakistan in 80s and 90s, sectarian violence. both sides killing each other. And Kurram has had that fault line also. It is Shia Sunni fault line, also accentuated by the fact that Shias, as I read from time to time, have been in possession of most of the land there. Now, those equations
Mhm.
are probably shifting. There are also tribal rivalries, and all this mix has meant, but mainly the Shia Sunni fault line, there has been a lot of violence there. So, when I was Deputy High Commissioner in the 90s, I know that in this region, a lot of killing used to take place from time to time, and all on sectarian grounds. So, one side would kill people of the other side, and then violence would take place and it would accentuate. So, in this case, as you know, it started when I think it was a Shia convoy which
Yeah,
was moving,
true.
which was attacked, and it resulted probably 40 odd killings at that time. And then, the state managed Khyber Pakhtunkhwa, the authorities intervened. At some stage, it was reported that both sides had agreed to observe peace. But that has not been the case. And today's reports are the killings are more than 120 or so,
Yeah.
124 precise as per the Pakistani press. So these are different factors at play behind violence in Pakistan.
So I'm coming back to now to some of the more recent developments. We had a major movement by the PTI,
Mm,
Tehreek-e-Insaf, to
mm,
breach the gates of Islamabad and create general mayhem. It was stopped, and for now everything is appears back to normal.
mm.
Um, I mean, politically, where are we now? I mean, in Pakistan, is it still a standoff? Is there? I mean, how do you explain the current situation there? Army is still in
Yeah,
charge. Shahbaz Sharif is in
yeah.
charge.
Yeah. No, I think army is firmly in charge of affairs in Pakistan. So Asim Munir, the chief of army staff, he is the final voice on all critical decision making. And I must say that Shahbaz Sharif has completely, sort of he's complying with the wishes and diktats of the army. So in some respects, if you ask me, it's a military regime, except
Yeah,
that you do not have a man in uniform as a martial law administrator or the president, etc.,
yeah,
etc. But Asim Munir takes all critical decisions, including on economic matters. Now, what is happening today, the events, the recent events that you refer to involving PTI, that is the result of army's continuous interference, political engineering to have a pliable government which would listen to it and carry out its diktats. As also sharp political polarization that has taken place with Imran Khan and his PTI on one side and the coalition of the older parties,
yeah,
EMLN and PPP, etc., on the other side. You recall the kind of election that took place in February 2024, where the army indulged in heavy rigging,
yeah,
to ensure that PTI was defeated and the coalition got some kind of majority. There are some reports that even Nawaz Sharif, he lost one seat, he contested two, and on the other also probably some intervention was necessary to make sure that he won. Now that left a bitter mood on the PTI side. Obviously, they were deprived of a victory which
yeah.
belonged to them.
Victory.
Thereafter, they have been targeted continuously. Some of their top leaders are incarcerated, including Imran Khan. His wife Bushra Bibi was released towards the end of October, maybe rearrested now. There are
I see.
reports. Then they were deprived of the reserved seats that they could have got in the National Assembly by the Election Commission. The Supreme Court, 15-member judge by 8 to 7 majority, gave a decision in favor of PTI, but the
Yeah,
Speaker refused to carry it out and said it cannot be implemented. The government has tamed the judiciary by making constitutional amendments, which gives the authority of appointing the Chief Justice from amongst the three senior most judges to a parliamentary committee in which the government coalition or the ruling party has a decisive say. So they have appointed someone who is pro the government. They've also diluted the power of the powers of the Chief Justice. Now, this means that PTI has no hope of getting any significant relief from the judiciary.
Yeah.
Then Asim Munir. Asim Munir, and there's bad blood between Asim Munir and Imran Khan,
Yeah.
because Asim was DGISI and Imran Khan as Prime Minister had kicked him out within a few months to bring in Faiz Hamid, who incidentally is under arrest by the army now.
Mhm.
So now Asim Munir, whose tenure was to end in November 2025, the law has been amended, so he'll be there till November 2025. So Imran Khan has no hope of getting any relief for these people. The only thing left with him is his public support, which has held.
Yeah.
In
So far.
Pakhtunkhwa, but decent numbers in Punjab. So he tries from time to time to leverage that support to get some relief for himself and his party. So last 2 months there were two onslaughts on the national capital. The first one just before the SCO heads of government
Yeah.
meeting in Islamabad in October, when the Khyber Pakhtunkhwa chief minister, the firebrand Ali Amin Gandapur, he led a column towards Islamabad. Things turned ugly. The government called out the army both in Lahore and in Islamabad. Eventually, I think they reached a deal with Gandapur. Gandapur, he's a firebrand, but he also knows that the army has the final say. So he has been making, it seems, these little, there are some reports, some compromises here and there. He made a compromise. He was allowed to come into Islamabad, but he left without holding a rally. Stayed
Hmm.
there for some time and left, went back to
Hmm.
Peshawar. This time, again, the rally, Gandapur was leading the main column from Khyber Pakhtunkhwa. But Bushra Bibi had been released towards the end of October, so she was with him. And she was not in favor of any compromise. So the government, for example, said, they wanted to come to this place called D Chowk. D
Hmm.
Chowk is a critical area in Islamabad, central area, where you have
Yeah.
parliament right in front. On the right hand side is Prime Minister's office and the Supreme Court, if you face the parliament. On the left hand side is the presidency and Prime Minister's residence. So all critical government buildings are there. So if you paralyze that area, you paralyze the government. So the government suggested that you hold your sit-in some other area in Islamabad. Bushra Bibi ruled it out. Eventually, there were killings on the way, but they managed to reach D Chowk, the leaders and some of their supporters on the 26th. That's when the authorities intervened at night. They fired on the
Yeah.
protesters. And now the number of killed is not known. PTI claims it's a large number. They said we have confirmed so far 12, but there'll be much more. People are missing. The government doesn't even want to acknowledge that there was any firing. A journalist who was trying to counter government's narrative has been arrested under the
Yeah.
charges of
Yeah.
terrorism. So that situation remains uncertain, but the PTI, in the face of this brutal use of force, has had to call off the protest for the time being within courts, as they have said. There are some voices within the PTI who also are questioning what are we achieving. People are getting
Yeah.
killed
Yeah.
and so on.
So I want to
So
ask you. I want to
yes.
ask you: are you surprised that the PTI has held together despite Imran Khan being in jail for over a year?
Yes, it's a mixed picture. Look, there are some leaders who are very actively with him who are not as actively operating for the party. But he still has a firm hold on the party. It's because of his popularity. And
Hmm.
there are cracks within the party. Cracks have been reported from time to time. And this Gandapur's, making compromises once or twice, that's also a sign of, people not carrying out all the instructions of the boss. Except that in this case, his wife intervened and she made sure that nobody flinched from the path that had been laid down by the leader. But if you ask me the question, where will these cracks go? It's difficult to say. But my own feeling is that so long as he has public support, which is holding, surprisingly, in spite of his being in jail for a long time.
Yeah.
So long as he continues to enjoy this public support, I think he'll be able to keep the party flock reasonably together.
Mhm.
But if that
Asim Munir.
support is failing, then all the bets are off.
Mhm. Asim Munir, he is going to be around for a long time, as you mentioned.
Hmm.
What does Asim Munir basically want now? How is he looking at this? I mean, I don't know if this current Shahbaz thing is something which entirely satisfies him. Do you think there is something beyond Shahbaz now he can aim for?
I don't know. I mean, there are two, three things. One, there is, according to me, my assessment, no compromise possible between him and Imran Khan.
Yeah.
One or the other has to surrender completely.
Hmm.
And Imran Khan has held on. He's held on to his guns, unlike Nawaz
To his
Sharif,
credit, yeah.
who accepted exile.
Yeah.
No, I don't even know whether Asim Munir would be, satisfied to send Imran Khan abroad because he has a lot of support in the Pakistani diaspora, so he could cause a lot of trouble from there also. So between the two of them, one has to back down and back down significantly. And none of them has blinked to that extent. I mean,
Yeah.
Asim Munir has no reasons. Probably he feels he has all the firepower with him. Imran Khan has held on to his position and he hasn't blinked to that extent. There have been talks of negotiations between the two sides. They have gone nowhere. That
Yeah.
is one. You are asking me about Shabazz Sharif. I mean, this is the best he can get. He is a civilian facade, but he's controlling everything in terms
Hmm.
of security, in terms of foreign policy, in terms of economy. He's part of the highest decision-making body on economic matters. He has from time to time addressed business groups, assuring them of reduction in taxes or repair of roads in industrial areas and so on. You see these reports in the Pakistani press. Would he like to take over directly? Not for the time being. I don't think so, because he has tenure till 2027 now, at
Yeah.
least till then. That's when he'll have to see what is happening, whether he can get more extension or what kind of mood is there. That's when he may be tempted to do something else. I don't see any reason why he would try and do that at this stage.
Mhm. Would you say that opting for a civilian, I mean, no, we had all that thing about General Musharraf taking on a civilian avatar. Do you see Munir taking that route? Because it's a very, very dangerous one.
I didn't follow your question. Which route?
If you recall General Musharraf, he
Yes,
got into a civilian avatar and carried
yes,
on,
yes,
but
yes,
not for
yes,
long. Do you see
yes.
Asim Munir doing the same?
Oh, not for the moment, as I said. I mean, why would he? He enjoys all authority as the chief of army staff. His
Yeah.
legitimacy as the chief of army staff. Once he starts going into politics, as Musharraf did,
Yeah.
try and have a referendum or an election to get elected as president, etc. That's when issues of legitimacy come in.
Mhm.
Uh, as I said earlier, he's there till 2027 chief of army staff. That position gives him all the authority and all the legitimacy that he needs. He doesn't need any political legitimacy in that position.
Yeah.
So therefore, why would he? I ask myself, why would he try and do anything of that kind for the moment? As I
Mhm.
was hinting earlier, in 2027, when he's nearing the completion of this first tenure of 5 years, it used to be three, it's been extended to 5 years. When he nears the end of this tenure, that is when he will start thinking, he may start thinking on those lines.
Hmm. Maybe insecurity will grip him.
Yeah, that's what happens always. I mean, Musharraf, for the first 2, 3 years of his tenure, he had all the legitimacy as chief of army
The
staff.
chief.
That's when he was the most adventurous against us. It's only when he started entering politics, he needed political legitimacy, needed legitimacy in the eyes of the West. That's when and then of course 9/11 happened, and the Americans told him, you are either with us or against
Yeah.
us. Those factors combined him to take a more reasonable position vis-a-vis us. And then, those back channel talks, etc., etc. So long as he was the chief of army staff, enjoyed legitimacy in that position, he was very adventurous.
So we've seen in the past that there was a lot of draw that Imran Khan had among the families of military personnel. And
Yes,
we've even had reports about generals and some others being thrown out of the army because they didn't stop PTI mobs or whatever.
yes,
Do you
yes.
think that's an issue even today?
Um, I don't know. I mean, at that stage, yes, he had a lot of following amongst the retired people. And since he had, certain charisma as an ex-cricketer, and then, he was very popular amongst the youth. He had garnered popularity amongst the middle classes, amongst the professionals, by saying that all these old parties are either for, landlords or big industrialists and so on. So I'll work for you. Now, when you have popularity amongst these segments in the society, obviously the army recruits also go from there. So some may
Yeah,
have had some sympathies. But there was no indiscipline, large scale indiscipline, except that after the May 9, 2023 violence against the army establishments. You know that Asim Munir got rid of almost 20 officers, including
yeah,
brigadiers, one lieutenant general, the corps commander of Lahore, who it was said that he allowed his official residence to be vandalized
yeah,
by the demonstrators. So yes, there were a few within the army who had to be thrown out at that stage. I don't think there have been any other major instances of any indiscipline in the among the serving officers because of their sympathies with Imran Khan. He has, of course, arrested Faiz Hamid.
yeah,
That's because he was pro Imran Khan. He
yeah.
is very close to Imran Khan. So he's been taken in on corruption charges, on violating service discipline, etc., etc. Amongst the retired officers, yes, he has had a lot of sympathy, and I'm sure he continues to enjoy. Except that the army has been very brutal in dealing with any such tendencies. So therefore, most of those people are probably keeping quiet.
So would you say the biggest internal security threat at this point is actually the guys coming from across Afghanistan?
There are more than one. It's of course TTP remains a big threat. TTP is well organized, well trained. They have access to sophisticated weapons and so on. On the other side, you have the Baluch groups,
Yeah,
Balochistan Liberation Army, Baluch Liberation Army, and Baluch Liberation Front, etc. Which have been operating in Balochistan. In addition to that, sectarianism and religious extremism are in themselves also big threats to internal peace and stability. So all these factors, you have three factors at the moment, which are troubling Pakistan. One is political polarization of what we discussed earlier.
yeah,
The other is a very fragile economy. They've managed to get a program from the IMF. They are meeting the conditions so far, but they are very tough conditions. How long Pakistan will stay on with that program, we don't know, because of the 23 or 24 programs that they have signed with the IMF since 1958, they completed only one, and the rest were abandoned midstream. Either IMF pulled out because they were not fulfilling conditions, or Pakistan pulled out.
yeah,
In this case, how long they stay. So they are not out of the woods as far as the economy is concerned. That's number two. And number three is terrorism by all these TTP, the Baloch groups, and of course you have sectarianism and religious extremism, which can lead to violence from time to time. And all these factors militate against stability within Pakistan.
Mhm. Any chance of any of these things spilling over to our side?
Well, they are very busy internally so far, but uh, if there are two factors here. One is spilling over, the precise question that you asked me. Now, so far, the Pakistani state is in reasonable control in spite of all the instability, etc. They are in reasonable
Yeah,
control. Now, should the Pakistani state authority collapse, In that case, it will not be a very pleasant scenario for us.
Mm.
Because then things will spill over willy-nilly. You will have a sea of religious extremism and complete chaos next door
Yeah.
without any controlling authority. And people may flee from violence within the country towards us. The terrain in the plains offers an easy passage. So, I
Yeah.
mean, how are we going to stop them? But we are not there yet. So spilling over in that sense, no. TTP, there were fears that people coming from Afghanistan may spill over onto our side. That hasn't happened so far. That having said, you saw recently the spurt in violence, but that's
Yeah.
the state-sponsored violence by the
Yeah.
Pakistan army establishment, first in the Jammu region and then in the valley also. It is
Yeah.
quietened down for the moment. How long, we don't know. But I think we'll have to keep an eye for that. There would be, they have been in a very difficult corner situation, so they had exercised some restraint on fanning terrorism on our side. They don't want any big trouble with us. But I think there may be some people who think that we need to do something now,
Mm.
and on that count, I think we should be on our guard and keep our counterterrorism operations in top gear.
On that note, sir, thank you for this perspective.
Thank
I
you.
expect Pakistan will continue to remain in this current state as long as the army is running things. And
Yes.
as long as that institution, from what you're telling me, holds, things will continue as they are. If that goes, of
Uh,
course, then God help us all.
Yeah, let me say one last thing, which I forgot to say earlier. Even though the Imran Khan's party has been controlled for the time being, the second time, they were beaten back, the
Yeah,
protest. The fault line between him and the army remains, as I said earlier. So, I mean, one cannot rule out periodic turmoil on this count
yeah.
in future also. So you are absolutely right. I mean, they are in a very serious situation, continue to be in a serious situation, and there are no signs that they are taking the steps to get out of them by taking a constructive approach.
Yeah, no solutions at all. They seem happy just to carry on as they are. Amazing.
Yes.
So, thank you. Lovely talking to
Thank
you
you.
after so long.
Thank
Thank you
you.
very
Thank
much.
you for this interesting discussion. Thank you.
That's all we have for you on this conversation. Do subscribe to our YouTube channel, follow us on social media. Thank you very much. Good day.